So thanks for the introduction, Ole. So as you said, I'm an architect and urban designer partner at KCAP, but today I speak as a member of the Swiss network with Ukraine. I'm a member since a bit more than a year now, and I work in the housing cluster. So today I present you our work, which is about offering new home. And this housing cluster started with initiative from the Verein Ukraine Hilfe that is providing some new homes for people who lost their house. According to the United Nations, there is a huge demand and need for new home. And now it started through the Verein on a rather small scale, single units. And then a question for us when we joined as a professional is how to upscale and bring it to the next level. So what is the Verein Ukraine doing is all based on crowdfunding, so on donation. And from this donation, they offer this new home for people. At the moment, it's about more than 80 homes that have been offered to people who lost their house. So like houses like this, there are two sides of modules. You will find in this exhibition as well model 1 to 5 of these small units. And you also see there the reality of the situation in Ukraine of people who lost their home, and they are very happy to receive something new. It's all prefab wooden housing. So our work is based on wood construction because we think it's sustainable and this is the future. So the purpose is also to have a future-proof solution, which is at the moment on single units. But this has already a great aura, and then it's touching many people. You have here a reception with the president of the federal state, Swiss federal state, Ignacio Cassis, and Martin Huber, who is the president of the association. And you see again here the need for home. And when I joined the cluster, we realized that this was a really great initiative, nice solution. But as a professional, there were some challenges to tackle. The first challenge was the one of the upscale to speed up the process of the reconstruction. The reconstruction and offering new home cannot be based on single units. There is also the question of future-proof design solutions, because we know that we are answering now emergency needs, but that this emergency solution will have to stay over time, and it might become permanent or half permanent. So it has to be a very good solution because it needs to stay for a while. And then we also have to ensure, besides the new dwelling, urban quality. From the moment that you upscale, there is also the question of how this will fit into the urban fabric and how this will also create a new hope and new way of living together. The idea through the cluster is that this is not something that is a project, but rather like an initiative that is open source. So that means that what we develop through the tools, but also material we produce that would be available for locals, for our colleagues, professionals, architects, but also constructors to also scale up and make our work available for others, that we can work together, and it's not just a single initiative. So working on the upscaling and open source, we work in parallel on units, but also on the tools, like a toolbox that would be available on the platform, on the website. So this is a Rhino script base. So this is, let's say, based on a unit dimension, how you could assemble them to create multiple or multi-story housing for collective living. And that this is also working in an urban setting. So somehow with parameters, amount of units, amount of floors, lengths, widths, also dimension of the plot, that you could already generate some forms. So there are forms that can be single volumes, simple blocks, but also create some urban ensemble that is made of a different size of blocks, of units, that is also including some collective space or collective purpose. So the one in the yellow, it's, for example, how you could integrate some school or daycare or like even medical facility, shared space within the development, and that it's not only a housing solution. So I think there the work is trying to have a wide scope on what is needed with the reconstruction. And to be able to do that, we worked together with the FERA in Ukraine, and they have a factory in Divaryo, so in the west of Ukraine, where they have already a production hall. This is where they produce all the single units. And based on this production tool, then we could dimension the size of our units and the elements. The idea is to work with prefab modular wooden elements. And this modularity is very important for the success of the project, because on-site work will not be possible in the context of war and destruction. So we have to rely on a production that is far away from the front line, that can be also a bit further. The modules then they are manufactured then in the factory, and then they would be shipped on site and then mounted with cranes in lightweight that requires a limited support and construction equipment on site with a light crane. The idea is that based on one module, we are able to offer the full spectrum of housing, meaning like from single, double, triple units. And this is allowed by the way we would assemble the module. For that, we have a test module. So we developed, let's say, the base, which is a single unit. This is also what is presented there in the plans. So the single unit is actually made out of two elements that would be mounted on site. The limit of the modules, so the reason why we split it in two is the capacity of the crane in the factory, but also the capacity of the crane to carry the elements on site. So basically it's all made and meant with a very lightweight construction. And once the two modules are assembled, so each of the units has let's say a living area with kitchen, a wet cell for bathroom and toilets. And then behind it also has a sleeping room. And it's possible to open the wall in the middle here. And thanks to this opening that is preset in the module, it's possible to assemble and combine modules together and create bigger typologies. So the bigger typologies, it's either the 2 rooms units. So that means that you open here the wall in between, and then you can have 2 bedrooms. So this is for a family with, let's say, 2 children and 2 parents. They still have the same living space and a kitchen at the entrance. And then you can even make a 3 bedrooms units, or like a collective living, like a WG. So this is with 1 more unit, and it creates a bigger room. So that's the modularity then is a bit of, I mean, it's as much as we want, and then we can combine the modules the way we like. And in a section, it's possible to stack them. At the moment, it's a challenge because in Ukraine, it's not allowed to make multi-story housing out of wood. So that's also like through this work we want to push. We think the wood is a good solution. And so far we use the Swiss norms to plan the project or the proposal. This means that we work with external access with a gallery system to access the module. So what we want to initiate is through this thoughts, thinking about the production tool, going from the single unit to the multi-story housing. It would go towards a pilot project to test all the challenges of this concept of this project. And together of the authorities, for instance, the authorities of City of Vinica, we are looking for a site, for location, for collective modular housing for internally displaced people. This would be about 20 to 30 units. We think it's the right size for a first attempt. And that would mean that it would be a home for 40 to 50 people. Besides the housing itself, we want to test there the collective space, so shared space where people will gather. Also create a courtyard, so let's say a space outside where people will also meet and start to have a collective life. And it's important for us through this pilot project to test all the technical limits of the single units that we have now. So that means the stacking. So first to test really the stacking of the modules themselves in terms of engineering, but also in terms of regulation. We know that through the process of the project, this would still be based on donation. We would be able to make it happen. but somehow that's a way to force the norms and the law there to progress and to move towards a multi-story housing building. So there is here on the screen an image of what this could become. You see here the so elements one level, here the stacking. On two levels, you have here idea of how we would combine modules. So you have single units, you have the units that are combined as an L shape. So they are intertwined. And then here you would have the double units. And as an access, you have here the access system with outside gallery. So this is the only element that would be made out of concrete for fire regulation. And around the corner here, you would have then the collective space. So the collective space indoor, which can be like a collective lunch, eating room, dinner room, like place to meet. And also the collective space outside in the courtyard where children will play together, where they can also organize a party, and then the social life of the project, of the housing. While we worked in 3D, we also have like a typical floor plan where we see all those units. Again, we can see how the elements are assembled with, let's say, the double units, the L shape. This is something that is very flexible, and this is where the script I was showing at the beginning will help us to design. And depending on the needs, depending on who needs a new home, so through the parameters, we will say we will need that amount of single units, that amount of double, that amount of triple, and it will generate forms. And then it's for us to manipulate a bit the cursor, so the parameters, to find out the right solution for the right plot. Because of course it will have to match with the plot that will be given or offered by the authorities. This is here like the upper floor plan. We also have like the other floor plans if needed. I think it's also important to give a bit of images of the spirit of what we want to reach. So this is an example of the office on collective living with this access from the outside gallery system, wooden construction with a space to meet. So here we see that the gallery is a bit distant from the facade to offer also certain privacy. In Ukraine, there is question of climate as well. In winter, it's really cold. I mean, to protect from snow. So that would be a gallery that is protected from the roof, but eventually also, or preferably also from the side, like a winter garden. So to create this intermediate space. So this is a reference. Thing our focus and as an architect is also to look for a qualitative solution. So through the prototype, also test different type of facades, different type of finish. So don't have like one element that is definitive and it repeats all the time, but to test all the variation that are possible to realize through the factory that this is really a pilot project. So it will be a bit mixed up, but like this, it will be we will be able to test what works, what doesn't work, also test different aesthetic, because the solution, I mean, needs to answer the emergency, but it also needs to be to have a certain beauty, because people also need this. I think it's important as architect to design things that look good, that also where people will feel comfortable and don't feel in this kind of in-between situation, that they will really feel home. This is another example that is realized by Dutch constructor Cobau. So I think there again, the idea of the open source, it's at the moment within the Swiss network with Ukraine. We work with Swiss partners, so with Divario, with the Ferran Ukraine. But of course, the work we do will be open to others, to other initiatives that are elsewhere in Europe. And this is an example of other partners we could have. This is also an example of a visit I did in Geneva, which is next to the UN. It's for people who ask for asylum in Switzerland, and then this is their temporary home. It's a very similar constructive system than ours, and in the modularity, in the way you can combine and make typology evolves from a single double to a collective living in a vertical way, and or a prefab wooden housing. So that's let's say more of an inspiration. I think the point today for us is to have more initiative together to motivate people also to get on board through the association Ferran Ukraine. Then they could build now up to 80 units. So our next step would be to confirm the site in Ukraine, and then after to start a crowdfunding or funding in general to be able to have this prototype and prove that it's possible to go a step further into the upscaling of collective housing, multi-story, and also test the different construction system and quality that can be used as example panel for other architects in Ukraine and abroad with different constructive systems. So I thank you for your attention. I'm at the end of the presentation, and we now have time for questions. Yes, there is microphone.
Okay.
It's because I have the mic, but.
Okay. So how much does it cost to make one bedroom unit? I don't think that it's worth it.
Yeah, as far as I remember, the one bedroom unit is about 20 to 25,000 Swiss francs. That's actually based on the construction cost of the Fera in Ukraine, and that's the elements that are produced in Ukraine. So then I calculated that if you go for 40 units, then you have to multiply the 30,000 by 40. So that makes about, I don't want to say something wrong, but 1.2 million of funds that we would need for this first prototype.
Okay. And how much does this one unit last? Like, for how many years can people live there without being reconstructed?
Yeah, my estimation is that it can last for good for at least 25 years. This is a bit of the idea. Also, the reference I had in Switzerland, it's meant for a site that is there for 10 years, and then it can be unmounted and remounted somewhere else. But let's say the lifespan of the module is about 25 to 30 years maximum. And then it's true that through that and the modular system, it would be possible to unmount and remount somewhere else if needed.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
Hi, Xavier. So I have a couple of questions. So extendability and height, how many can be stacked? And I was wondering about the customizability of the unit. So can people choose color, or how would that work so that it's more personalized in a way? Just brainstorming.
So for the amount of levels, we estimated that we could go up to 3 to 4 levels, so not too high because of the modular system. Then after comes the question of the lift. So therefore, at the moment, through the prototype, we would like to test only on 2 levels and then not have a lift for the second floor. But then it's more of a technical question of how high we would be able to go, but easily 3 floors, maybe 4. And then for the customization, at the moment, it's more meant for the inside. So the inside is rather raw, and then everyone is free to do the interior himself or herself. And for the outside, I think that would be rather us through the prototyping and testing different type of facades, that there would be a variation of volume and different type of facade element, blinds, shutter, also rhythm or let's say a type of elevation, but all made out of wood. We could also test different cladding, but the idea is to use as much as possible the tool that is available. Yes, I think what will be a bit more difficult is about the proportion of glass, for instance, and windows that probably need to be a bit more standardized. Yes.
Thank you. I was committed a bit later, so I didn't know all details that you produced to the public, but I understand the topic, and my question is how much it could be cost, or for example, a big half of Ukrainians who was affected. That's that's a south and east side from villages. The people didn't and don't have big salaries before, and also now because of influence and so on. How would they afford housing?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so what was presented today at the beginning of the presentation is also in the panels and the model, it's donation. So that it's crowdfunding and financed by people who give money. And after it's a donation to people, so they actually don't need to purchase their new home. The idea would be to continue the same way as far as we would carry it. And so that's about the financing model so far. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, and in addition, if the people who donate and finance the housing, who would how to say committed to oversee for financial distribution.
Yeah,
Who would in charge of?
Today the distribution is in charge of the municipality, so in the local authorities. For the 80 housing that were already given. That's you can also find this in the booklet, in the brochure of the Verein Ukraine, Build for Verein Ukraine.
Thank you. And can I one more question? As I saw some projects already realized, and some housing already exists. Yeah. Okay. And which regions are covers now mostly?
If you want to locate the houses, they are all mapped in the mapping for Ukraine, where Jonathan Bons then is working on. And if I'm not mistaken, the new homes, they are currently where it's in the area between where the front line moved. So it means that they were under, it was an area where the war was at the beginning, and now the front line moved, and then where there are heavy destructions. So that's, let's say, more or less the middle part of Ukraine, if I can say it this way. Jonathan, do you know more precisely where they are located, or someone else in the public? Ivankiv, yeah. Yes. Yes.
One question is, have you started the process in a participatory way so that you included the people themselves, or did you came there and sort of, or did you just went there, looked at, and then started designing? That's one question. And the second one would be, what happens after the 10 years or 25 years with the material in terms of life cycle assessment questions?
Yes, the first question about participation. For the upscaling, now we work rather in an abstract way, because the point is rather to have a concept and a system, and we are looking for a site. And somehow it's difficult to make participation before there is a site. And now the contact, they are rather with the authorities. So they are contact with the city of Vinnytsia. And then once the site is confirmed, we could start a participative process or look for families. That's also for us. And the idea of the script is to know the amount of units that are needed and how big they are. So somehow we would need to know the people that are going to come inside. Somehow, like who are the people that need a home. So this needs some interaction with the future users or the future inhabitants. This is part of the goal we have, that it's not abstract and that there is a relation. So from the single units that were delivered, there was already ended to the person that is going to move in, organized with the authorities. This is rather the Hilfe Verein Ukraine that was dealing with that. It's less of my part of the cluster. And I hope I answer your question, but that's how far I can go. I think then the next step would be to confirm the site and then start the process. And about the lifespan of the modules, indeed, that's at the moment we look at the short term. We already said through the concept that we want at least to tackle the midterm, maybe even the long term. I mean, I don't know where you put 25, 30 years, if it's a mid or long term. And then afterwards, it's very hard to plan. What we know is it's something that is lightweight, that is modular, easy to build and easy to unbuild. So that means it could have a second life somewhere else in the world as well. I mean, it's a bit wishful thinking, but we could ship the elements somewhere else if needed. Or then it could be shipped somewhere or moved somewhere else within Ukraine. Or then as we have in wood construction and rather simple constructive system, that's something that is easy to recycle, reuse, or let's say let's say, use it for energy, so to say. So that's not something that would generate a lot of waste neither.
So I have another question. So there is a lot of references that work really well. So this can work really well. For example, Aravena has done, I think it was concrete and in a different situation, but it was adaptable and it works really well. So so my question would be, how do you work with references and how much does that help in your process?
Yeah, we are now in a bit of an abstract exercise because we have no sites, there is no project, and we want to bring further the initiative that already exists. And the initiative that already exists is wooden housing. So of course we could have looked into, let's say, collective housing that is either concrete or metal container like steel. But we think that we want to build or rebuild a sustainable future for Ukraine, and that the wood construction is part of it. So somehow there we want to contribute to develop this branch or the manufacturing of wood construction for CO2 reason as well. So that it's not only for the immediate need, but that there is this wooden construction that get a step into the country, and that is part of the reconstruction process. This is not through modular, but it can be extended as well in the field of construction and architecture. So I think this is a bit of bigger thinking about what should be the construction in the future, and it's independent from what happens to Ukraine. But we consider that this is somehow a good solution, not say the best solution. And we also had the right partners for that here, both having the manufacturer and also the potential engineering behind that would be supporting on a volunteer basis to develop the project further. So it's a choice, let's say, to work with woods.
My question, so how many houses are already bring into use?
Yeah, at the moment, I think it's 81 or 82. It's 89 even. Mm-hmm. So 89 have been donated. And so I think now it's about a year and a half that it started.
So it's people already live there?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, I could not go back to the slideshow, but I could show it. But people live there, and yeah.
And what are the next plans? Could it be like some commune? They ask you for 10 houses or for 20, and you already have this money or not at the moment donated?
So there are, I think, three things. One thing is the initiative, the way it exists, will continue because there is also the need of single units, single housing, and it's already working, so they will keep doing it. Then there is a second thing is we try to initiate this pilot project. So there we looked with authorities to get a site because it's also about having like a building site. And then once this is confirmed, look for funding. So the funding can be either private or institutions or let's say states. So there somehow it's to guarantee also the process and the quality of what would be delivered. And then the third approach is what you mentioned is rather bottom-up, that some local authorities contact the network. They have a land available, and that we could make a proposal according to their needs. There is at the moment maybe something this way popping up. It was late last week, but it's a bit too early to talk about it. But indeed, it's an example where municipality would say we need 8 to 10 units. Could you help us? And after it's discussion on how we can do it technically and how it can be financed, whether it's through the way, whether it's the same way as now, or if we need extra funding and how we will find this extra funding. And hopefully this exhibition and discussions we have will also help to federate initiative and also accelerate with funding and getting to a concrete pilot project.
Are there any more questions? Okay. Thank you, Xavier, for this very interesting lecture. Thank you everyone for attending. And now everyone is welcome to continue discussion with a cup of coffee.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.